Greetings. I'm Sister Michelle, and welcome to this session of Life Skills for Mission. Our topic today is nonviolent communication, and Sister Mumbi is our speaker. I turn this over now to Sister Mumbi.
Thank you. And without further ado, I'll start.
Okay.
So I've spoken and written quite often about my first few hours in the USA during my first trip or first move here in the fall of 2006. Having arrived in the US at an airport in the South, I struggled to understand the custom officer's accent. But I thought it was slang spoken by the TSA officers, and it sounded almost like a foreign language to me. Then I took another connecting flight to Philadelphia Airport, my final stop, and here again was another version of English. After meeting the sisters who had come to pick me up, several other incidences in the short span of the drive to my new home further revealed that American English is a whole different thing from British Kenyan English that I had learned and used up to this point in my life. In the days to come, as various conversations and various encounters left me confused or uncertain, it dawned on me that this was a culture that relied heavily on words and whose body language was quite different from my own. The total amount of my lived experience in the US is now 9 years, and communication continues to present new and unique challenges. Languaging continuing to be a tool that can be used to build bridges or to put up walls, depending on how somebody uses it. And I've often thought that every good thing is a double-edged sword. And it is the same with communication. Communication, whether verbal or nonverbal, can break down barriers, nurture relationships, affirm and uplift, heal and soothe. But in the very same line, communication can cause harm. It can traumatize, it can wound. Communication can be violent. Religious life is one of those spaces where people from a multitude of diverse backgrounds, who for the larger part, if not for the vocational call and a shared attraction to a spirituality and charism, their life paths might never have crossed. People might never have chosen to live and work together. Even though there's a lot of work that has been done with intercultural living, the emphasis has tended to be on white American versus non-American culture, or versus people of color. However, even within a seemingly homogeneous group of people, subcultures exist. And all these things, family dynamics, social status, sexual orientation, previously learned communication styles, they influence how we communicate, interpret, and receive communication. So looking at nonviolent communication, which is an actual whole field of study in itself, I'd like to add that even a guru of the subject or a master practitioner of this, mistakes are bound to happen. Feelings get hurt because we can only control our output and not anyone's input in communication. Thus, I believe that reconciliation has to go hand in hand with nonviolent communication so that our communities may thrive, our ministry spaces might thrive. And as I continue to speak, I will lean on Marshall Rosenberg's groundbreaking work on this topic. His own practice and his study stemmed from his experiences as a Jew and those of his ancestors who have continued to face much hate and prejudice in the world by their very identity of being Jewish. Nonviolent communication means that we learn to hear our own deeper needs and those of others. It emphasizes deep listening to ourselves as well as to others. Nonviolent communication helps us to discover the depth of our own compassion. Its language reveals the awareness that all human beings are trying to honor universal values and needs every minute, every day. At the very core, human beings, we are very similar in what we desire and what we want, and also what we abhor. The nonviolent communication can be viewed as both a spiritual practice that helps us to see our common and shared humanity, using our power in a way that honors both ourselves and the other. I don't know what you believe, but it's been said, and I also believe that all human beings at their very core are good, compassionate, and loving. Your sister in community, even the ornery one, is good, compassionate, and loving at her core. And you yourself are good, compassionate, and loving at your core, no matter what popular opinion might hold. So, beginning with self reflection, let us meditate on the question of what disconnects me from my good, compassionate, and loving nature at times. What disconnects you from your good, loving, compassionate nature at times? What makes us behave in a violent manner? Could it be pride? Could it be anger, jealousy, hate, sadness? Could it be a lack of forgiveness? Could it be our previous life experiences and trauma that haven't been attended to? I'd also like you to think of a person in your life, and we all have this because in our communities, saints thrive. A person in your life, no matter who and no matter the circumstances, they seem to be always able to extend compassion, to extend love, even when the recipient doesn't always seem to deserve it. What do you think, in your opinion, makes this person able to extend grace time and time again? I want you again to reflect on yourself. Reflect on a time when you were able to extend grace to someone who had hurt you so deeply. Holding all this in mind, let us remember that language and the use of our words lie at the crux of nonviolent communication. I'm not saying there are no other ways to communicate, but so many times language is the only means we have in intercultural communities to explain further what other modes of communication like nonverbal or body language might be saying, or to clarify what people mean when they say certain things or do certain things. Marshall Rosenberg tells us to think of nonviolent communication as a way to focus attention. On any given day, how do we express ourselves and hear others? I think of a typical day as a sister. You wake up pretty early, go for prayer, you meet your sisters at the breakfast table, and then on most days, we start on a day of ministry with many routine details and some not. Imagine that usually hurried breakfast and the normal chatter that occurs at the breakfast table. How much of our language is routine, a bit absent-minded if we are being honest? Then think of your colleagues in ministry and our interactions and reactions to them. How many are habitual and routine? After all, as sisters, we have been trained to be pleasant, friendly, polite, firm. Some of this comes so easily to us. We say the right word, we make the right sound, we give the right shrug, the right nod at the right places. Are we able to filter in these daily exchanges subtle changes to voice, body language, speech in those around us? Are we able to communicate to those around us that perhaps today I'm feeling a bit out of sorts, I'm worried, I'm tired, I'm anxious, but also happy, joyous, or excited? Or are we known for being these even-keeled people who are always very predictable? Nonviolent communication gives us a guide in reframing how we express ourselves and how we hear others. Instead of these habitual automatic reactions, the words we choose to use become very conscious responses based on what we are perceiving, feeling, seeing, wanting. Nonviolent communication is an invitation to express ourselves with honesty and clarity. while on the same hand, giving others a respectful and empathetic ear. We come to hear our own deeper needs and those of others. We also learn to observe carefully and to specify behaviors and conditions that affect us. I think of myself. I might end the day feeling irritable. Nothing has been uniquely different about that particular day. But time spent in prayer and meditation reminds me of an incident that happened. And sometimes it's not based on that incident, but that it triggered something in me, something that happened in the past. And that throws me slightly off balance the rest of the day. When I do take that time, I get to know that certain behaviors or conditions affect me. I might be able to forge ahead and still get whatever needs to get done. But what if it didn't affect me consistently? So we learn to identify and clearly articulate what we concretely want in any given situation. Nonviolent communication helps us to replace patterns that all human beings have of defending, withdrawing, or attacking in the face of judgment or criticism. And sometimes it's perceived judgment or criticism. We come to perceive ourselves as well as others, our intentions and our relationships in a new light. So then this defensiveness, the reactiveness, the withdrawal becomes minimized because we clarify what we're observing, what we are feeling, and what we need, rather than judging the situation. And in doing so, we discover the depth of our own compassion for ourselves and for others. Nonviolent communication is more than language or a process. It's a reminder to keep our attention focused on a place where we are more likely to get what we want than in places that will not give us that. Many times, speaking of myself, we focus our attention on places, things, or circumstances where we are unlikely to get what we want, instead of refocusing our attention on places which have the potential to yield what we need. And I'll give a simple example. I might have a need to have an accountability partner when I exercise, for instance. That it helps me to take a walk with somebody. I walk faster, I walk farther, I get more out of it. And because I'm an extrovert, I even get this space to bounce off my ideas as I'm walking with this person. In as much as my closest friend is usually like the best person to go to this to, what if she doesn't like walking for exercise? So she'll come once in a while, to indulge me because I'm her friend. But the consistency I need in exercise cannot be fulfilled by her. So instead of me engaging in this cajoling exercise every day, please take me for a walk, please come with me for a walk. What if I find somebody else in the community who loves taking walks as much as I do? There also lies potential of me developing a new friend, and getting a new perspective on my ideas. So instead of focusing my attention on a place where I can't get my needs met, I refocus my attention on where I can get my needs met. And find other ways to spend time with my best friend that are both comfortable for both of us. The Bible reminds us of something that I believe you've all experienced, that it is more blessed to give than to receive. And I find that to be the essence of what our vocations are, our desire to serve, to stand in solidarity with, to minister to. It stems from a deep knowledge of this, that it is more blessed to give than to receive. And I know as sisters, you've all experienced the glow of deep joy and satisfaction when you've enriched a person's life without expecting or wanting anything in return. You come home and you say, it's been a great day. even though at a glance, most of those interactions seem like the receiver is the beneficiary of the interaction, we, the benefactor of the givers, also benefit greatly and are deeply enriched. I'll also remark in passing that this is the true meaning of hospitality. It is a give and take. In a proper scenario, the one receiving does so without any fear, guilt, or shame. And the one giving the benefits derives a sense of self-esteem in knowing that one's actions have contributed to the other's well-being. And please note I said self-esteem and not ego, because it is very easy to fall into the trap of the latter, thus distorting the whole concept of hospitality or giving. Practicing nonviolent communication never places a burden on the other to do the same. As we said, it's a spiritual practice. And we know that consistency bears fruits. And thus, if we stay true to the principles of nonviolent communication, we believe that others too will be drawn into this process and start responding to us in the same manner. So remember that once you make a personal choice to live in this manner, our spiritual tradition will give one the strength and grace to persevere in this process until it bears fruit. So let us talk about what nonviolent communication looks like. The first step is always observing what is happening in a situation. When we observe what others are saying or doing, and whether it enriches or does not enrich in my life, then articulating that observation without any judgment or evaluation, to simply say that what somebody is doing, we like it or we don't like it. And I will stress that tonality is everything in such communication. Next, you state what you feel when you observe this action. Are you hurt? Are you scared, joyful, amused, irritated? Remember, nonviolent communication is not just about saying the things you don't like. It could also be about affirming the other person. Affirming in a positive way that can actually lead to more action. And then the third step is we say which need of ours are connected to the feelings we have identified. And I will give an example. Sister Anna might express these three components to a fellow sister in community by saying, Sister Maria, when I see 2 dirty cups on the coffee table and another 3 in the kitchen sink, I feel irritated because I need more order in the rooms that we share in common. Then she would follow immediately with a 4th component, a very specific request. Would you be willing to take the dirty cups back to the kitchen and wash them immediately after use? It might seem like it's common sense that once I remark that I don't like dirty cups, the others would follow. But specificity is great. So this 4th component addresses what we need or want from the other person that would enrich my life or make life more wonderful for both of us. Because if I don't find dirty cups, imagine I'm Sister Anna. I might be more pleasant when I walk into the room than sighing dramatically. So expressing these 4 pieces of information very clearly is nonviolent communication. But it also means receiving the same 4 pieces of information from others with an open heart. So we first connect with the other by sensing what they're observing or feeling and needing. Then we discover how I can enrich the life of the other by receiving the 4th piece, the request. As we keep our attention focused on the areas mentioned, observing, feeling, needing, and helping the other do the same, to observe, to feel, to express their need, we establish a flow of communication. So the example I gave was pretty simple. However, you might need several exchanges to finally arrive at the need and the requests. When this flow is going on, eventually compassion manifests naturally. What am I observing, feeling, and needing? What am I requesting to enrich my life? What are you observing, feeling, and needing? And what are you requesting to enrich your life? Remember, we said that most of the basic human needs are very simple. So underlying a lot of dialogue, the eventual request might be very simple. When we use this process, we either begin by expressing ourselves or by empathically receiving what the other one is saying. And remember that this process adapts to various personal and cultural styles. So the directness you might get in this kind of request from an American perspective of using language might mean a more delicate dance in a culture that is not highly verbal, and might take longer to arrive at the root of what the person needs to enrich themselves. Note that it's also possible to experience all four pieces of this process without uttering a single word. Note, the example I'm about to give does not mean that I'm trying to say that passive-aggressive behavior is a healthy thing. No, it's a very unhealthy thing in community, but observance can change a lot of things. So I'm Sister Maria in this equation, and I notice whenever Sister Anna walks into the living room at the end of the day and finds my dirty cups spread on the table, I work from home, she'll pick up the cups, go to the kitchen, and wash them before sitting down to rest. I noticed that. An attentive, observant me would then cotton onto the fact that order and cleanliness are essential for Sister Anna's rest. She can't sit down if the living room is a mess, and then do something about it. Deep listening is not just about listening to words, but also deeply listening to nonverbal language. And this is only possible where there is compassion, because then there is no judgment. I'll give you an example. I lived with a certain sister during formation. When the first Christmas came around, I went to her room to borrow stamps and wrapping paper and gift bags, because those are all the things I think of buying and having with me. And I'd had a few random trips to her room to borrow stamps. Every now and then I had to do handwritten letters, but I'd made a few trips in that year. After that first year of borrowing, 3 weeks before Christmas in the subsequent years, I would find these supplies outside my room a few weeks before Christmas. She's also the same sister whom, whenever I ask to stay in their house during a visit, makes sure there's a mango in the fruit basket because she knows I love them. This is a fruit she never bought before I moved in with her, and she doesn't buy when I'm there, when I'm not there. But when she knows I'm coming to stay the night, I always find a mango in the fruit basket. This example shows that nonviolent communication is not always about righting a wrong, so to speak, but also about communicating and receiving what are referred to as next level needs. So these are not the basic needs of food, shelter, security. Because a different fruit would satisfy my cravings, my nutritional needs, easy. However, having a mango gives me immense joy. So when that sister buys me a mango, I feel seen, I feel loved, I feel known, because she remembers these things about me. The same way giving me stamps and wrapping paper year after year I felt seen and loved. She could easily have become irritated by me. After all, I have my own budget. Why don't you go buy your own stamps? But this is her way of responding to my needs and enriching my life. And she truly enriches my life constantly. So the essence of nonviolent communication is our consciousness of those four components, not in the actual words exchanged. So many times in communication, we focus on the words being used and not what is being communicated, and we get hung up on them. As sisters, I could easily say this. In many of our chapters and assemblies, we get caught up on the words, wordsmithing, they call it in this part of the world, but not what is being said. What is the essence? And in non-violent communication, we need to focus on the essence. Because living in the communities that we do, with so many subcultures, having been educated in different ways, in different schools, in different parts of the world, how we use words will always be different. But what we're trying to communicate reveals people's deepest needs. Nonviolent communication allows us to receive words not as a tax, but as a gift. It's me opening up myself to you. It's you opening yourself up to me. It enables us not to rush into defensiveness or retreat when words are uttered with emotion, but to stay with dialogue, to perceive those three components within what is being expressed. What is the person expressing displeasure or pleasure about? How do they feel about it? And what needs of theirs are connected to what they're expressing? There is not always a solution to the needs expressed. And you know that as sisters ministering to people who are vulnerable. The problems are many. However, being heard and understood is a gift that we can always offer to the other. Even to our own sisters in community. As I conclude, I'd like to highlight something I mentioned before, reconciliation. Reconciliation begins with oneself before extending to interpersonal relationships. Reconciliation is healing, and that means attending to one's own trauma. Healing is an act of extending compassion to oneself. And that practice enables you to extend compassion to the other, but also to receive it in return. So even as we engage and embark on this journey of nonviolent communication, I urge you to take time to look at your own life story candidly, listening to the parts of yourself that need attending to, that need healing. This will then set you on the path to nonviolent communication with yourself and others. Blessings to you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Mumbi. You've given us so much to think about, especially that last part where you invite us very, very gently to review our own lives and our own history, and where is it that we might need to get to receive forgiveness as well as to offer that. Thank you for this understanding of nonviolent communication. It will help us as we walk into the future. Blessings on you too, on your life, on your ministry.
Thank you.
And this ends our presentation for today.